Ah.
Hey everybody, it's January. It's January 2023.
Yes, it is.
What does that mean,
That
Jason?
means this band has been around 50 years officially.
Woo!
Kiss.
Yep, that
50
means
years.
50 years ago this month, Ace joined the group.
Yes, he did.
And they became a quartet.
They played their first show ever
Late January?
at the Popcorn Club. Yes, January 30th.
January 30th, yeah.
Later named Coventry. There's some kind of debate about whether it was called Coventry at the time, but we think it was called the Popcorn Club. But Kiss played their first show 50 years ago this month. So we thought it was a good time to do the debut album and talk about all things 1973.
Actually,
right?
we didn't really plan it. We can't really take that much credit. We just kind of, like, oh yeah.
It was an
it's-
afterthought.
Oh yeah, it's 50 years.
Okay.
But there's so much to say about this record.
Oh, yes.
The historicalness of the studio they recorded at, the guy who did their first demo, and just the scene that was happening in New York too, New York Dolls and all the stuff that was happening, everything that went into, everything that built up to this first album, and I think the tour after it, it's just also amazing how
Yes.
quickly they went from Ace being in the group, January 50 years ago this month, to like 11 months later they're touring. The album's out.
Yeah.
February comes out. A couple months later, they're on national television a couple times. It's amazing how quick that all happened.
And it's all due to not only the boys in the band, but you got to give some credit to Bill Coyne. I mean, he got the ball rolling, Eddie Kramer was a huge part of it. We'll talk about him. And we're going to talk about all that stuff right here in this episode. And, hey, we want to take a moment, though, beforehand. Our channel's kind of been on the upswing lately. We're kind of excited. Thank you to all the new subscribers. Everyone is watching. Our Asylum video, Asylum/Exposed video, has done really well, and we thank all of you for watching.
For some reason, people like that one the best, maybe.
Yeah. We don't get it either. But
So we don't get it so much that we decided we'll go back to the early shit.
yeah.
We're not going to do the smart thing and do Crazy Nights next. Nope.
Brandon, hi.
He's messaging me right now.
Yeah. Yeah, Brandon's like our top fan.
We talk about Brandon in every episode now.
Hi,
it
Brandon.
might just become the music of Brandon after a while and talk about, you never know.
Yeah.
And what we have here is a Japanese copy. And I'm pretty sure the Japanese copies didn't come out until 77 in Japan. And this is...
Blue Label.
Yep.
Gotta love it.
Really nice copy. It's funny how many of these Japanese versions, even when the cover's a little coming apart at the seams, they still took such good care of the vinyl. The vinyl is still amazing. It's just immaculate, But yeah, these are really nice copies.
It's just 180 gram audio
Yeah,
file.
but these are really nice. These are really
Yeah.
nice. I normally have at least a handful of different copies to show. Of course, I have the remaster and the original. Subtle differences, but I have to say, even though I think they're both Robert Ludwig master and remaster, or remaster master. This is one of the ones where the remaster definitely matters as far as sound quality. It's definitely noticeably louder and a bit brighter. So there definitely is a difference. Some of the albums, there's not that much of a difference. But what they did do in 97 is they did go through and kind of balance, I would say, the catalog. Brought those albums up that needed to be mastered a bit louder and kind of match things and balance the overall catalog. So that's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. But I just like, when I first had it on CD, I had this version with the pink and yellow logo back here. And it's just these lines
Yeah,
that are
what's that about?
They're supposed to look like the back.
Like that, right
yeah,
there.
totally. But pretty cool.
Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about 1973 though. Everything leading up to this album right here. So 1973, January 1973, Ace joins the band. He walks into the rehearsal studio. He's wearing one orange sneaker and one red sneaker. He stumbles in, excuse me, and plugs in after Bob Kulick, by the way.
Sounds like Ace was a little bit obnoxious. Probably didn't
Yeah.
know he was. I've heard him in interviews say, "I don't know what they were talking about. I think I was being quiet." He wasn't even plugged in. Did you know that? He
No.
was just sitting over there, kind of strumming, not plugged
okay,
in.
at
But I
first,
think
yeah.
he was. I've read that he was kind of like laughing
Yeah,
and just
yeah,
talking
yeah.
loud.
Yeah. So the legend goes.
Yeah.
And then anyway, so it's his turn to audition, and they start with Deuce, and they like what they heard, and they end up calling him back. And Ace joins the band. So this is January '73. Obviously, they got deep into rehearsal right away
They
because
played Deuce first with him.
yeah, they played their and then they played their first show a couple weeks later at again the Popcorn Club / Coventry, whatever you want to call it. And then a couple months later, they do some demos with Mr. Eddie Kramer. You want to talk a little bit about Eddie Kramer?
Eddie Kramer worked with people that they wanted to be,
Yes.
so they were happy
Whether
to get
that
him.
be Zeppelin or Humble Pie, yeah, he was Hendrix,
Uh-huh.
obviously. Yeah, he. I guarantee you, Paul and Gene especially, and Ace were like blown away by working with this guy. So Eddie produced a demo. What was it? A 5-song demo?
Yeah, and it was recorded. He wanted to record it kind of simple with them.
Yeah, it was 4-track, right?
It was 4-track, which meant probably a stereo mix down of their live performance, and I think they just did vocals. I'm not sure if they even did solos later.
Yeah, it's pretty basic. I don't think there was a lot of production involved. It was just them recording their songs.
And he let them just do what they were doing, basically.
Yeah, it is good. It's really good. It obviously eventually got them noticed and eventually signed.
People like it. People, if you look on YouTube, you'll see you'll see songs posted on YouTube from the Eddie Kramer demos, and this is better than the First Kiss album. I mean, I'd have to disagree just because it's not real balanced. It's not, the first album, of course, is tighter. It's fuller. There's things about the Eddie Kramer demos that are very good. It has a good energy.
I mean, keep in mind that those 4 guys have been together like 3 months at a time.
Yeah.
You know, so
It's good, but I think the first album, although there's a couple things about it I wish were balanced in a little bit different way, it's got a better balance,
yeah, they were more refined by then, and Ace was if you ask me, a way better guitar player by that point.
I mean, I read over and over that they practiced 6 days a week.
Yeah,
Like, they practiced a lot. I could never do that. Even before I had kids, nobody would do that with me. So it's amazing that Gene and Paul found 2 other guys who would practice that much. And they did grow as a group so much. And you hear those demos, and he rehearsed the loft rehearsals, the early shows. And then by the time you hear those songs, just like year and a half later on live, quite a difference.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and so they do the demos with Eddie Kramer. They play around New York City. They're playing the Daisy.
The Daisy was later, Coventry, which was Popcorn,
The Coventry.
Diplomat,
Hotel. Home of reasonably priced prostitutes, as Paul put it.
Really?
Yeah.
Reasonably priced. You would know.
Yeah, so they played the show with the Brats in Wayne County.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, they were playing around New York City. They were garnering some attention. It wasn't like it was like they were the band to see, but yeah,
There was people at the
making some
time,
waves in town.
guys from the Ramones, they check them out at their shows.
New York Dolls.
Yeah.
Peter New, of course, again, the New York Dolls.
And they were checking out the New York Dolls like everybody was, I guess, at the time, because the New York Dolls had a really strong visual thing going on. And Kiss kind of tried for that. And if you look around online, you see some pictures where Kiss looks a little prettier. They're looking...
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Looking a
Those
little,
early photos.
a little cute.
Yeah.
But they realized it wasn't them because, as they say, they kind of look like linebackers and tutus or whatever.
Exactly. Gene said that. Yeah.
So they found their thing. And it's another thing that's interesting. I didn't realize you see different pictures of them in kind of like primitive makeup. You know the pictures of them in the rehearsal space where it's the 3 of them it's them with Peter and they have whiteface. That was before Ace was around. It wasn't a picture where Ace was just kind of like not in the shot. That was before Ace was around, and they were already messing around with whiteface and
So that would have
maybe
been
what to do on
late
top of it.
72 then.
Yeah, and they didn't really bring that back around. Then got Ace. They did shows. They figured out they're still searching for what they're going to do exactly. Then they kind of came back around to Whiteface. Paul was the last one to really get the Whiteface going on. And here, my big build-up to makeup story that I just didn't remember or realize. Ace designed Paul's makeup.
Wow.
I just kind of maybe I forgot that over the years, but
Yeah,
that is really cool. Because Paul's was the last makeup to kind of figure out what he's going to be. And even after the album was out, he still had the banded makeup on. He did it once or twice or whatever.
Yeah.
And he still was not really sure. But it's cool that Ace did the star. And I guess it was 2 stars. Because Ace had that whole symmetry thing. Ace's costume is like a favorite, you know. There's that funny Blackie Lawless story where he talks about he was working in a printing place, and they were printing way more Ace posters than everyone else's. Ace's look was awesome, you know. So when he was kind of shooting for that symmetry when he was
Plus
designing
that was
Paul's
around the Star Wars time.
it was 2, yeah. But it was 2 stars, and then Gene even said it looks kind of like Ace's. Supposedly, one night Paul goes out with just the 1 star and said, "Oh, I'm lazy."
Yeah, right.
And that became the thing.
Yeah, Paul doesn't give Ace a lot of credit for that. It's been mentioned, but
You know, I love Paul. Of course, his book is pretty harsh. I kind of wonder what he thinks about his own book now. I mean, he read his book, and it's an audiobook too, so he must be comfortable with the amount of negativity in his book. But it is interesting in the early days. You see the pictures of the Gene with the, is it here? No, I don't have any pictures here, but you know, the Gene's late 73, 74, the Crossbones shirt.
There's you can kind of see it
He
here.
might have had 2 Crossbones shirt, but I think this is the one. Ace's mom made it. Ace's mom made that kind of like eagle bird thing that Ace wore also. Peter's mom was also sewing them shirts. She would do like glue and glitter shirts for them and stuff. And there's some things I also read recently where Peter
You kind of
says,
see it there.
yeah, where Peter says even him and Ace were putting up posters around town. So in the beginning, they were all really trying. They were all giving it a go, you know.
All right. Do you think they were out there with makeup putting the posters up, or I
think not.
Okay.
So I did hear a story where they got lost one time in Long Island, and they were trying to find their way, and Paul went into a gas station to ask directions with the full makeup and costume. Wouldn't that be funny?
Wow.
Yeah. So August, I guess, the Eddie Kramer demo, which Gene had been leaving.
That
notes.
was actually in March.
What's that?
That was in March.
Yeah, but I mean in August.
They got the attention of Bill Coyne.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
From that demo.
Bill Coyne said, "I will get you guys signed," and sure enough, he did. To Neil Bogart's brand new label, Casablanca Records. And so they go in the studio in October in Bell Sound Studios, and you have some info on Bell Sound Studios in New York City.
Well, the studio they ended up going to, and there's Bell Sound demos also, but I think the Bell Sound demos, even though they sound a little fuller and stuff than the Eddie Kramer ones, they're a little sloppy, they're kind of loose, they're forgetting words, the arrangements, they're not all changing at the same time. I think it's kind of like those guys had them set up, let's hear your song, just see what you got, and then let's work from those demos. But I think that the deal was probably, I'm guessing the deal was already in motion with Casablanca when the Bell Sound demos were done.
I'm sure, yeah.
So yeah, Bell Sound in itself is pretty historical because Stand By Me, Gloria, Hang On Sloopy, what else?
Gloria
Mitch
by
Ryder.
them?
Yep.
Wow.
Van Morrison.
I didn't even know that was recorded in
I had a couple
America.
notes. What's that? Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Frankie Valli, Big Girls Don't Cry. Put your head on my shoulder.
Did you say Hang On Sloopy?
Hang On Sloopy.
Hey, there's a Kiss connection there.
There it is.
What is that? Rick Derringer, people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, see, Exciter. Get it? Get it?
Mitch Ryder, Devil with the Blue Dress On.
Wow.
There's a lot, and
Historical.
There's tons of stuff recorded there.
Historical
And
studio.
the sound of the studio, I feel like you can still kind of hear it.
Yeah, he
in the Kiss
mentioned
album.
earlier that he said it's like rock and roll soul, and I totally agree. And we're going to get into more of that when we could do the track by track.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So it's a historical studio.
It crept into the recording.
It was an older studio. Whatever materials they were putting up for studio sound in 1950 or 49 when it was being built or whatever, it has a certain sound, you know. So it opened in 1950 and went till 76. You know, it only went a couple years after Kiss recorded there. But the studio was cool. You know, there's pictures in the studio. When they were recording Paul laying on that piano.
We love the fact that they took so many photos. Obviously, it's their first time in the studio. You know, they want to take the photos home and show their mom, right?
Yeah.
Which reminds me, 3 of the Kiss guys, when they recorded this album, lived at home with their moms.
Yeah. Totally.
Peter lived with Lydia. They were separate. Yeah, that's so cool, though.
One of the things you see in the, besides a bit of the gear and those weird guitars Ace is playing, which he's not known for, you know, like the Breadwinner and stuff, is there's that one shot where he looks like he's walking in the control room, and a couple of them are sitting on the couch, and he's got the red shoes on. He has the red shoes on.
The Converse?
They're both red or pink or whatever, but I think those are the shoes.
Probably the same ones. Historical shoes.
Absolutely, historical shoes. It's in every Gene and Paul story when they met.
Yeah. Well, the story is he was wearing an orange one and a red one.
Yeah, but I think that's the red pair.
Okay.
He got it right that day.
Yeah, that day he got it right.
But I saw them the other day and I'm like, those are some red shoes. It look like kind of like Converse. Oh my God, those are the shoes.
By the way, coming up, a picture of Ace holding a baby.
Let's see it now.
You want to see it now?
Come on, let's see this.
You might have to edit this because it might take me a bit to find.
Let's see that baby.
Okay. That's a cute baby. No, we gotta. Oh, here it is. I found it instantly. Okay, so keep this in mind. This is Ace in like 70. Oh, that'd be 74.
Debut album break.
Yeah.
For Ace with the baby.
So, would you let Ace hold your baby? Also, young Eric Singer right there. Yeah, that's true. That is a young Eric Singer.
You're gonna get in trouble.
I know. That's not Eric Singer. But would you let Ace hold your baby is the question.
Let Ace hold your baby.
Anyway.
Yeah. So so the recording of the album, there's some cool pics. There's Gene and Paul with their Lubo custom guitars. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because DiMarzio was a friend of Gene's in school, and he hand wound their pickups for them. So they had custom pickups. So
wow. Okay.
They have custom guitars and custom pickups. And so you want to getting that classic Kiss sound isn't necessarily getting a Les Paul custom.
I'm learning stuff just sitting next to you during this.
There's also pictures of Ace playing that white Ovation Breadwinner. And that's
an ugly guitar.
That's pretty weird, but very spacey, space age. You know, I gotta say, maybe he was thinking it'd be a cool spaceman guitar. Mm-hmm. It's got like a lot of plastic pieces in the bridge and stuff like that, and it's got the same material on the acoustics, which is that really hard material that gave it that kind of brighter sound.
He definitely plays a Les Paul
weird
down
guitar
too, though. At least it sounds like it.
Do you think he laid a lot of Les Paul down because he liked to double things with the Telly or the Strat? He said.
Oh, really?
But I've heard him say that the Breadwinner is what he played on that album.
I just know I hear something like 100,000 Years is solo, and I think that sounds like Les Paul. So, questions unanswered.
I don't see any pictures with him playing the Les Paul.
Yeah, that's weird though.
But there's also a picture of Gene sitting there with it plugged into a Sun. It's a Sun. What is that? Oh, Solaris. There's those pictures of Gene plugged into a Sun Solaris. Whether he's playing that on the whole album, that could have been a day where they were just, doing an overdub. I mean, I don't really know, but he was plugged into a Sun Solaris, so that could be the bass sound on the first Kiss album. There's the secret. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, we love the sound of this album. Yeah. Actually, we're gonna get into that in a second. But yeah, so they recorded in October. From what there's some different accounts of this, but I've heard it took between 6 days to 2 weeks to record this album.
But it went into November, right? October, November.
Yeah, I think they started late October. So depending on who you believe, it didn't take long. Mm-hmm. Mixing and all that took a couple more weeks, and then so they do a show in December. Where was that at? Was that Coventry, the one on Kissology? It's filmed. It's documented there. You can all watch it. And then they played the New Year's Eve show with Iggy Pop and Blue Oyster Cult, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
At the Academy of Music.
Gene
lit his hair on fire, right?
Yep.
That show's available on YouTube too. Thank you, YouTube, for all this stuff. And then
Thank you, huge corporation.
they actually played the Academy of Music like a week later, some kind of showcase or something. But then they end up doing their big West Coast like arrival show, like Casablanca Party, and Alice Cooper was there.
Yeah.
And his famous quote: "They're a good band. All they need is a gimmick."
Oh yeah. I remember that.
You gotta love Alice. Mm-hmm. And then they go on tour, their first tour ever in Canada. Okay, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. We should talk about the actual album.
There's sometimes you see, like, I got this cool card set from a friend, and I kind of like, I collect old Kiss stuff, but my good friend Jeff, if Jeff watches our videos, these are really cool Kiss cards. These Kiss tour set. It's got the info about where the tour started. I guess it'd be cool if he gave every Kiss date location on that could be the only improvement on these cards.
Well, you can read a Julian Gill book and get that info too.
They got spot glossing on here. These are really quality cards, but it says the first Kiss tour was
122
shows, but I've seen it listed as 80, 90 other places because I think they're counting some of a bunch of the New York shows they played going up to the
pre-album shows.
Yeah. Oh, these are really cool cards. There's Rock and Roll Over Tour. Just gives some information on the back. Pretty cool cards if you ever feel like picking up Destroyer Tour. Goes all the way through every tour.
Right on. So we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're talking about the first tour. Let's talk about this album. Let's do track by track.
I don't really want to though now.
No? Okay. Fine. We're leaving. Track by track. The most famous drum intro in history is I Love It Loud, probably.
Yeah, totally, because I love that.
But Peter's most famous drum intro in history is...
Jimmy Strutter. Blickum, blickum, blickum. There's a comedian in the 80s. What did he say? I think he said, you got a docking drum solo. Blickum, blickum, blickum. What is that comedian's name? I can't remember, but...
He was talking about Strutter?
It was actually, he's kind of quoting Strutter more than Dawkins, but
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but he brings the album in with that fill.
Yeah.
He brings that fill on his Rogers kit, by the way.
Okay.
In the pictures, it's hard to tell, but I'm pretty sure that's his Rogers kit that he bought new Mylar and had that kit that you see in their practice space. I'm pretty sure that's the same kit in the studio. And then you see some other kits like this that he got when they gave him some money for gear, and they all got new gear and Les Pauls and new amps and stuff.
Yeah, when the money started rolling.
But I'm pretty sure that's his original kit. It's a Rogers. It's a Rogers Supersonic. Yeah, it's a 5x14. It's not like a big heavy metal deep snare. Just kind of a normal snare. So blickum, 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 and then.
So anyway, Strutter, yeah, the drum intro, and then right away you get Paul with his little chugging. I call it Chuck Berry with a Stone Swagger kind of vibe. Ace starts doing the suspended chords, and the verses start, and Strutter, just top-notch Kiss song. Mm-hmm. So it was co-written by Gene and Paul. I think of it more of a Paul song, but Gene had a hand in writing it. Apparently, it was kind of influenced by Stanley DeParrott. Do you hear that?
I don't really hear much, but I've heard that too. Yeah.
Yeah, Stanley DeParrott is an early Gene song, like
might
really
just have
early.
A couple chords or something.
Yeah, like 1970 or so. Very, very
not
flower
Kiss.
power.
Very not Kiss.
Yeah. So Gene had a hand in writing it too.
I hear that a lot of these early songs, Gene had a hand in writing because, like Black Diamond, also. I think that's all Gene. Gene was very, very good at riffs. Paul basically said that Gene can move around on the fretboard better than he could.
Yeah.
So Paul wrote coming from a chord standpoint a lot of the time. Not that he's a total strummer. He had a lot of those Rolling Stone things, licks in there too. But Gene would fill it in, and sometimes that would become something Ace would do with the bass. Or sometimes it would be something that the bass would do, like at the end of Black Diamond.
Yeah, Gene. If anything, we're Gene defenders till the end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gene is just awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, look at these.
Look at that guy.
Look at these picks. He's just nuts.
Yeah, we have this is a stack of bootlegs, by the way, from '74.
Yeah. But Gene is just so musical, too.
Yeah, he really is.
He doesn't get credit for it.
And he doesn't even talk about it much.
That's why he doesn't get credit for it, because he never wanted to do detailed interviews with, like, say, Musician Magazine or Bass Player. You know, he was happy being on the cover of 16 and, you know, and all through the 80s, I barely heard him talk about, like, what amps he used and stuff like that. There's the Sun ad from the late 70s, but he always shied away from getting too musician-y, you know.
Hey, he really did.
But, dude, he's a badass, and he wrote lots of cool riffs, and he definitely did cool stuff on a lot of Paul's songs, you know.
Yeah. And, so Strutter, I mean, it's what can you say about it? It's Strutter. It's the first song on the first Kiss album. Ace's guitar solo. I like how Ace... He'll have a guitar solo, but then he'll have an outro guitar solo.
Yeah.
He does that a couple times in this album. Yeah. So he's right away, if this song doesn't hook you, might as well shut it off because, the second song, Nothing to Lose.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's...
Nothing to Lose has always been a favorite. And the label pushed it and pushed it and pushed it too. Put it out as a single, put it out as a B-side.
Yeah, it didn't do anything as a single at all.
Yeah.
But I don't even think it charted. But, so...
I mean, I just think maybe the label was kind of anal about it. I mean, it's an anal sex song, so... how many times are you going to try to put it out? I mean...
How come a song about the back door will not make the airwaves, but songs about the regular way will? That's all that's on the airwaves. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah.
Also, Peter, I have a question for you. Is he singing about the same woman who was the recipient of his log in 1984?
I don't know.
In her fireplace?
Maybe it was maybe it was his plaster caster.
It's the same type of woman. Okay, so Gene already they haven't even toured yet, and he's singing about sleazy material.
Oh, he was nailing them around the recording studio.
Probably.
He was finding them around Red Lady and stuff like that.
Yeah. But anyway, we love the song. Bruce Foster on piano, by the way. Bruce came in because we haven't even mentioned these two names yet. Kenny Kerner and Richie Wise.
Yeah, it's funny we haven't mentioned them because...
We're the producers.
There's a lot to talk about. But not only that, but Kenny Kerner opened the demo, and he told Neil Bogart, check these guys out. I think you should sign them.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that crazy? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so...
The connection.
So Kenny Kerner,
No wonder Kenny Kerner and Richie Wise got put on that first album. Yeah. They had everything to do with them getting... signed, so.
Yeah, and they had a bit of a, little back history. They had recorded The Stories. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows the song Brother Louie. They did that. They produced that.
I play that down at the Valley where I do sound almost every weekend. You got to ask anybody that works there.
Yeah.
Oh, God, we're going to hear that again.
It's a good
Still
song.
The Night probably tonight, too.
It's a good song. They did some Gladys Knight and the Pips. Later on, they would do Steve Marriott. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah. They did
At Bell Sound? Or where?
Nah, I don't know. That I don't know.
Yeah.
So...
And if you listen to Brother Louie, it doesn't sound... I love that song. And I love it because the singer and the performance in the song and everything. And that song's a remake, by the way.
Is it really?
Absolutely. It's a remake.
Cover song?
Yeah, I think it was kind of like a black soul group originally that did it. Real late 60s or early 70s or something. If you look it up, there's another version out there.
Okay.
Check it out. I think this version's way better. But it's not recorded perfect. It's not totally balanced. if you listen to that and then you go, they did a pretty good job on the first album, actually. I mean, the first Kiss album does sound pretty good.
It does.
People complain about it because it's not really amped up, but it's clear, it's warm, it's consistent. I think it sounds pretty darn good,
To me, it's a raw, but
dude, if
it's a clean sound. There's not a whole lot of. It's not a heavy album.
Yeah,
but it's like
if it sounded like
it's like rock and roll,
Physical Graffiti or something, it just wouldn't be the first album though. It wouldn't be its own thing,
Yeah. it's a good production, but it's pretty raw. There's not a whole lot of gloss to it. You know,
I wouldn't mind some more verbs here and there. You know, I also noticed that the cymbals are really mixed low, and that really affects the energy. You know, as a drummer myself, I'm always fighting to get those cymbals up just enough so they're not annoying on my recordings. But having those cymbals low like that, they definitely affect the cleanliness of the album. Like, it sounds clean and stuff, but it doesn't have the same energy. And, you know, Peter is mashing those cymbals. You know, he's Ringo in those cymbals a lot of the time. You know, like on, you know, just Yellow Black Diamond and whatever.
Yeah.
And the cymbals are not, to me, they're not quite loud enough. You know.
Yeah, there's a quote in Paul's book that the drums didn't come out sounding in the way they would have wanted. And he doesn't blame the producers. He blames everything as far as mixing is concerned.
If you see the picture, Peter's baffled off. It looks like the baffles are like 4 inches away from the drums. I mean, it's no wonder it doesn't sound big. You're cutting the whole room down to this little space right around the kit. Yeah. And it's an early 70s thing to do, you know. Keep it clean, keep it punchy, but...
Yeah, Gene and Paul were way into like Zeppelin and Humble Pie and stuff like that. And they wanted a big drum sound, but they didn't get it.
Later they figured it out via larger than life and stuff like that.
Like, you mean later? Like in the 80s?
By the way, I got this today. It's the new
Sidebar.
half-speed master. We don't always show like stuff we pick up this new, but it's just black vinyl, but it's nice and heavy, real nice quality.
Really heavy.
I haven't even played it yet, but half-speed master, Creatures, gotta love it.
Yeah. So yeah, the drum sound wasn't what they wanted it to be. At least Paul is quoted.
But they didn't know how to get it.
Yeah, they were just happy to have an album.
Yeah, they were complaining at the time.
Yeah, and they definitely didn't get it on the next album either. And it would take them a while, actually.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean the drums aren't good. They just the sound was they grew, you know, they wanted to sound like a British band, really, you know. And but I for one am not complaining. I think the album sounds great. You know, it's the first Kiss album. What can we say? Mm-hmm. So what are we on? The second song, Nothing Lose. Again, Bruce Foster on piano doing his Jerry Lewis stuff. It's kind of a Little Richard vibe almost to the chorus. It's about anal sex. Mm-hmm. Blistering guitar solo by Ace. Great song, catchy, first single. Didn't do anything.
Yeah. I love it though. I really love it.
Yeah, it's an amazing song. So let me just state that Peter, of course, sings the choruses. So a song and a half into Kiss's debut, you've already had 3 lead singers. Mm-hmm. Amazing. What other band does that? You know?
Dude, and Peter's vocals are so good. Granted, you have to figure out what kind of song to have him on. But who don't you have to do that for? You wouldn't have Ace sing a ballad. You know what I mean? Of course, he hadn't sung yet. But and we were listening to, what were we listening to earlier? Daisy? We were listening to the Daisy when we were talking about getting ready for this. And his screaming is just, brings their show to another level. I mean, Gene can scream too. But
that's why they let him say, Kiss loves you, rockin'.
Yeah.
Peter, man.
Yeah.
We love you, man. So Firehouse is next.
Yep.
Paul has said this was inspired by the Move song Fire Brigade. Mm-hmm.
Which it's kind of funny, but I have Fire Brigade coming on 7-inch. The Move is a great group. And if you haven't heard The Move, Fire Brigade is not the only good song. It's just one of like...
Brontosaurus.
It's just, a little later. Like, yeah. But for me, they got at least 2 dozen maybe great songs.
Yeah, they're kind of a psychedelic pop band. Jeff Lynne. Yeah.
But Fire Brigade, musically, Paul didn't really borrow from it a lot. But
it's a totally different song.
Theme-wise. And a vehicle for Gene's fire breathing.
Yeah.
But the Move is very cool. Yeah, I found a good deal on a 7-inch of that.
Well, so Firehouse, when I listened to it in preparation for the show, you notice the tempo's a little slower. I mean, it doesn't bother me though. And they must have noticed the tempo was slower because remember on Double Platinum, they speeded it up.
They're always messing with the tempo of Fire.
They speeded it up way too much on Double Platinum. And we'll get to that in another episode.
Yeah, that's kind of the Chipmunks version.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But it's, what can you say? It's Firehouse. It's like Paul as a teenager writing a song,
Yeah.
and it's incredible. I always thought when I was a kid that she's like bad weather, but it seems so good was one. When I was a kid, I remember thinking that's a great lyric.
Yeah.
Yeah. So great song. You know, it's funny when you listen to it now. The sirens at the end last like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
You're so used to it live, just going on and on. And
Yeah,
on.
yeah. Because the siren goes off and some smoke goes up around Gene.
Paul,
so
Paul's
you
got
can't,
the fire hat on.
yeah, and so you can't quite see what Gene's doing. Smoke over
Yeah.
there, and then he gets the
Yeah.
stuff in his mouth, and they hand him the sword.
Here's your thumbnail.
Yeah. And he and it's so cool that he did that ridiculous shit on the Mike Douglas show.
Yeah,
That's so awesome.
the Mike Douglas show. We're gonna get to that because that's a very important part of history right there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Firehouse. You know, I mean, first 3 songs Paul has gave you Strutter and Firehouse.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on. We're big proponents of Gene, of course, but that doesn't mean we don't like Paul. And
A lot of times, Paul songs are leading off the album for a reason, you know.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So speaking of Gene and Paul, let's talk about Ace.
Mm-hmm.
Cold Gin. Ace is he wrote this on the subway on the way to rehearsal.
A lot of people's, one of their very favorites. It's not quite as high up for me, but it is a lot of people's favorites.
It's a great song though.
It's all hook, you know.
Yeah. And I like the fact that Ace wrote it, but Gene sings it. Great vocal, by the way, by sober Gene. And Paul has his little
They wanted
interjections.
Ace to sing it. They
Yeah.
wanted Ace to
Yeah.
sing it, but he didn't want to.
But Paul interjects his, oh yeah, and all that stuff during it. So
Yeah.
So
And Eddie Kramer demos, there's some weird variant of the chords happening. Have you noticed that on there? It's not the same. You have to just listen to
they
it.
hadn't refined it yet.
Yeah, the chords are a little different.
Okay, and there's a little guitar solo at the end. I know
Much
that.
better by the time they got
Yeah.
over here. And Firehouse has some really weird transitions on some of those early demos. Have you noticed that? Some of the transitions are way too long.
Shifting around with the tempo again.
But just like the whole little transition thing that gets them back into the verse, it's twice as long, and it's kind of crazy for what we know on the album. And I guess Richie Wise said he was the guy that kind of helped them to say how to cut out the fat here and there, you know, how to keep things concise.
Yeah. Richie Wise, one of the producers, of course, was in a band called Dust. And Kenny was their lyricist and like manager. So he was a musician, and so he showed Kiss some things. You know, they had more studio experience at the time than Kiss did. So yeah, they would of course use Kenny and Richie for the next album as well. But these guys at the time knew what they were doing, and Kiss they were brand new in the studio. They were, show us what to do. You know, in Paul's book he talks about it how they were just listening to what the producers told them, and they were doing it. So yeah. So up next is "Let Me Know," the worst song on the album.
What?
I'm kidding. We listened to another album review that said that. No, "Let Me Know."
One of my
is
favorites.
incredible.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
It absolutely one of my.
I mean,
favorites.
heavy metal song of the year? No, but it's not supposed to be.
No.
You know.
It's a happy sounding Kiss song. It's a little backstory. Of course, everybody knows this, but I'll repeat it anyway. It used to be called Sunday Driver, and when Paul first met Gene in a mutual friend's bedroom, Gene said, "Play me one of your songs," and Paul played a song called Sunday Driver, which was this song. Ended up being "Let Me Know," and Gene was like, "Oh, okay, yeah."
Pretty good. So what did Gene reciprocate with that? What did Gene play for Paul that day?
Probably Stanley the Parrot.
No,
who knows? Yeah, or me and my uncle was a raft.
Yeah, totally. And Paul was like,
Exactly. But Paul's seen enough in Gene to form a band with him. That was Wicked Lester. We'll get to that at a different time, different episode.
of course, some of these songs are from the Wicked Lester album. It wasn't released. Here's another thing we didn't mention. That was with Epic, where they had a deal to make the album, getting ready to do, I'm not sure if it was final mixes or just pretty good mixes. They realized that the band wasn't really going to last, and they didn't really like the band. They didn't really like all the stuff. And the songs are good, but they are recorded, there's a lot going on in some of those songs. And they're playing with speed. They got Gene sounding like a chipmunk at times, you know? but they took the songs they were good riff-based songs, I think, and that was really the starting of Kiss when they got together with Peter. But they had a guy come. What was his name? And his buddy come from Epic to check them out at the Loft, and they didn't like it. Of course, they were a trio at the time.
Yeah.
So
What do they know?
Things could have went different though if Epic was interested. Could have went totally different.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have really.
History would have been forever changed.
They would have maybe not had the makeup thing fleshed out. It took some time to kind of let it grow properly and all that. So anyway, interesting.
We're just lucky Bill Coyne came into the picture, and he was the fifth member of Kiss.
Yep.
Casablanca. I mean, Kiss was their main focus, so they wouldn't have been Epic's main focus.
And they were passing notes around Warner. Their talk was, let's not really go with Neil Bogart on this Kiss thing. Like, whoever was at Warner didn't really want Neil to bring in Kiss. So I guess he had a meeting and he took his Buddha records or whatever, he left, started Casablanca.
Well, they look like clowns. Would you want to sign clowns to a record label?
Neil asked him, I guess, would you just do the band without makeup? And they said no. So he went with them and said, all right, well, I'm with you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Kiss had a very strong foundation of people behind them. I mean, that can't be understated. They
already knew how they were affecting crowds. The people at Warner and stuff probably had no idea. Kiss already knew how they were affecting the frenzy that they were creating.
It's not just that. Bill Coyne had a vision of what this can. I mean, he was very visual. He worked in TV, so that was his medium. So he knew this band can get across to people. That's why they were so big on the visuals, really. So Gene's vision, Bill's vision, Paul had a lot to do with it too. I think Ace and Peter were just kind of there along for the ride.
They like to say, well, we all had the same vision of a band that
they went along with it.
Yeah.
Gene and Paul and Bill, those three. And even Neil. Neil had a lot of influence too. So
the interesting thing, Neil, being the bubblegum king, just loved their music. I think that's so cool.
There's a simplicity of the music that I think appealed to him.
But he didn't even really care whether they did the makeup or not. He just believed in the music.
Right.
And he was the guy throwing all the money around. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. So let me know. We love it. We've talked about it on a few episodes, on our top 20 Kiss songs and favorite deep cuts. It's a happy sounding song. There's a lot. You know what I think they should do? I was thinking about this. At their last show ever, which will be coming up.
Play the full album?
No, I think they should at least close with Let Me Know, because that's how it literally started.
Yeah, how they met.
It's literally the first song Paul ever played for Gene. So why not close with it? Okay, now I understand there's going to be some people in the crowd going, what song is this? But the people that know, tears, seriously. Gene and Paul too will be, especially Gene. He's a big softie. He'll be crying.
Did you see that footage of Gene playing with Johnny Depp that showed up yesterday online?
No.
It's some kind of fundraiser. They played Deuce.
Recently?
It just came up I think people started posting it yesterday evening.
Okay.
It's kind of cool, and Gene's voice is sounding good. Singing Deuce. It made me realize he could do some little tours when Kiss is done and still pull it off for a while, because his voice isn't bad.
Yeah.
It's lower, but
Yeah, I always wanted to see the Gene Simmons band. I wish they would have came here.
Check out that footage. I bet you'll be like,
I will.
Gene's voice sounds pretty good.
I will.
Johnny Depp kind of knows the songs.
Really?
And it's a little bit of a train wreck, but it's a fundraiser. They're in a small club or something.
Okay.
Check it out. It's cool. Yeah.
I know. Okay. So let me know. So we're gonna talk about Kiss in Time, right? Kiss in Time was not on the original version of this. So a little back history here.
And I love Kiss in Time. Where it's stemming from, the original version, it's definitely not hard rock, but they made it hard rock.
Yeah. So when this album was recorded in October 73 and came out February 74, Kiss in Time was not on it. It hadn't been recorded, even thought of. But later on, as they're on the little tour trail there, the Casablanca comes up with this idea, let's have kissing contests. And we'll have them in different cities, and it'll garner some attention. And
Seattle gets mentioned.
Seattle does get mentioned.
Yeah, Seattle. Yeah.
So it was probably Neil Bogart who had the idea, record this version of Bobby Rydell's Kissing Time. So they did, and kind of reluctantly, right?
Yeah,
They
kind of.
weren't really into it.
They say that later, but
It was just going to be a tie-in with this kissing contest.
Peter's great on it. I mean, the overall sound of it's pretty darn good. I love it. I think it's great because Deuce and Kissing Time, that's what they are. They're heavy metal, but
yeah, it's weird. They went back to Bell Sound Studios, but it doesn't have the same exact sound as the rest of the stuff.
It
almost sounds like it's getting more towards Hotter Than Hell.
Yeah, it's a little more raw. It's got a thickness to it though.
Maybe they just didn't take as much time on it.
It's got their new gear, the new guitars.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little bit different. Those after the album, it looks like they're pretty much using their custom Lubo stuff on the album and his drum kit he had, but when they went back in, they obviously didn't go hunt that stuff down. They used the stuff they've been using. So
yeah,
their new Les Pauls and stuff like that.
Yeah, so when this album came, I mean, the first 100,000 or so had no Kissing Time. But all subsequent pressings had Kissing Time as the first song on side 2, right? And it was released as a single, and it flopped. I think it made 87 or so. But yeah, it mentioned Seattle. They mentioned the cities where the kissing contests were held.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
but it got them on Mike Douglas' show.
And if we're excited about it, mentioning Seattle, we're from that area. So this is a Northwest Kiss podcast.
We're in Tacoma, a little below.
Yeah, yeah. So any Kiss Seattle connections we're all into.
Yeah.
And Kiss came here in like May '74 as well. I think
Spokane.
I think they came here too, to Paramount.
Oh yeah, yeah.
With T-Rex. I think a young Nikki Sixx was at that show.
I've heard that in the first tour they would just play a lot of small places in cities that don't normally get big bands, like
definitely.
Spokane. You don't always hear of like, I mean, did everybody come and play Spokane in the early '70s? I don't think so.
No. I think Zeppelin did at one point though.
Yeah?
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so Kissing Time, it's a cover obviously. Let's see.
I love it, man.
I think
I love Kissing Time.
Paul, Gene, and Peter sing lead. Peter actually sings the line about Seattle. Mm-hmm. Kiss off in Seattle. So yeah, it's fun, you know. Does it fit on the album? I don't know.
I think once it was put on, I think it is one of the things that make the album what it is to me. You know,
yeah.
Of course, that's the version that I had first.
It's true. I mean, I've always known this album with that song on it.
Yeah.
If you're one of the 100,000 that own it without Kissing Time,
100,000.
Hey, see what we're doing here? We're leading up to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So up next, what do you say? The best Kiss song of all time?
What's next? I can't read that. What is it?
Deuce.
Oh yeah. Oh, side 2.
Yeah. Deuce. Paul wrote the intro. Gene wrote the rest. I heard he was trying to kind of. It was like his version of Jumpin' Jack Flash meets Bitch.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I wouldn't listen to it and think that, but
no.
You know, it's got Bitch's kind of, you know, fast tempo.
That,
yeah.
Downbeat accents, yeah.
But again, you know, it's what can you say about this? Seriously,
it's got nonsensical lyrics.
Yeah,
but
lyrics,
Gene knows it's how the lyrics sound. It's not always what the words are. You know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of people know that. You know.
It's weird that it's track 7 on the album that we know.
Well, it opened,
but it's like the ultimate album show opener.
Yeah,
you know?
But back then, the best songs on the album, everybody side 1, side 2 did the first track. And
it's the best track number 7 on any album ever. I'm going to say that.
For years, I will say for years when I had my copy, I thought Deuce. So does Deuce start side 2, or did Kissing Time eventually?
When Kissing Time wasn't on the album, it did. The Kissing Time starts.
That means that originally, when I was a kid, I had the first.
Whoa!
I had the first version, which wasn't that rare back then in '84.
Should have kept it. You were one of the 100,000.
Because for years, I always thought Deuce opened the album. I guess I kind of wanted it to.
Well, you know what? You might have been thrown off because Paul has introduced Deuce before as this is the first song on the first Kiss album.
That's true. But
sorry, Paul, it's not.
But a couple of years into being a Kiss fan, I looked and I like Deuce. Deuce is. I always thought that was side 1. You know.
There you go.
So,
mystery solved.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, Deuce is number 7 on this album. And I mean, come on. If you're watching the show, you know the song.
Have you ever heard a Kiss fan or even a somewhat Kiss fan that said, "God, I love Kiss, but Deuce"?
No, never. Never.
That song's pretty weak.
And if you think that, turn this off right now. We don't want you.
We hate you. No, it's so good. It's so
Oh, come
rocking.
on.
And Gene gets to be full on Demon Gene in it, and the scream at the end. Oh man, I just in all of these Kiss shows, anything that has Deuce on it live, I'm waiting at the end to hear exactly what his scream is going to be like.
Exactly.
Yeah, what quality scream is this night going to be, Gene? The one on the live is great. The one on the live is great.
If you've watched our other episodes, there's the top 20 Kiss songs with makeup. Spoiler alert, I believe it's both of our favorites. It's the best. It's my favorite Kiss song of all time. Definitely, without a doubt. So after Deuce, we go into... What could I... Oh, Love Theme.
I should have made I love Love Theme.
Yeah, Love Theme from Kiss is next.
Yeah.
An instrumental. Is this their only instrumental besides Escape from the Island? It's the only one I can think of, unless you count Fractured Mirror.
It's so good and it's so cool that it's just its own song. And on Elder, that's part of a thematic thing,
True.
But on the first album, it's actually just its own little instrumental song. I just think it's so cool. I've always loved it, but I love guitar harmonies.
It's got a groovy little feel to it.
And in its live version, Acrobat, which we learned... Acrobat, they do the extended Much Too Young. They even did it on the first tour after the album was out. They kept doing the long version of Acrobat.
Yeah. Let me tell you a funny story about Acrobat.
Let's hear it.
So in I think it was early 84, Kiss were on Rockline. Remember Rockline?
Oh, yeah.
Al Bandero?
Yeah.
A fan calls in. And he goes, "You guys gonna play Acrobat?" And at the time, I was like 13. I didn't know what Acrobat was. And Gene goes, "Acrobat, that's off our first record, maybe." And I remember going, "What's he talking about? What's Acrobat? There's no Acrobat on the first album."
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe we'll play that.
Oh, yeah.
So, of course, I learned later on that Love Theme from Kiss was actually called Acrobat before.
Yeah.
But that just blew my mind. Like, what is Acrobat? What is that? I have the first album, Acrobat's not on there. But, yeah, they changed the title, of course. I heard it was the producer's suggestion to call it Love Theme from Kiss. And they... it's just the Acrobat part. It's not the Much Too Young part.
It's just the melodic guitar hook, guitar harmony
it's
part of
good.
the song.
It's a nice interlude. That's what
I love it. I think it's great. I think Sofia Coppola used it for in her movie Somewhere. That movie called Somewhere?
Francis's daughter?
Yeah.
I know, yeah. Okay.
Anyway, she's cool.
Yeah,
she knows how to get down with some
She directed a video about the Black Crowes, which I really
debut
like.
Kiss.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's a Godfather reference. Connected to the first Kiss album.
See?
New York City, early 70s.
Who knew?
100,000 years.
100,000 years is great.
Paul describes it as about intergalactic space travel. He also says he really doesn't know what it's about.
Yeah.
But we know we love it. The thing about doing this show, reviewing albums for you people, is I personally listen to things more intently.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm going to be talking about it. So I'm not just enjoying it I'm driving around, this is good music. I'm really listening to it. And it really dawned on me how much of a influenced by British music this song is. And especially the guitar solos. The Ace's guitar solos, the little panning he's got going on in the speakers, the little breakdown section. It's very British rock. Very British rock.
It's a very, very cool groove. It's when I got my first drum set, I had a snare drum that I had at home, and I played snare drum in band. But when I was able to get my first kit, it was early maybe summer '86, whenever Somewhere in Time. It was about a week after Somewhere in Time came out, and the first two things I ever put on was 100,000 Years from Alive and the Somewhere in Time album. Those are the first two things I ever practiced with, and I'm sure I sounded like absolute
So
garbage.
you were starting off on the easy stuff.
Well, I started out, I learned ghost notes from him. Dragging the left hand, and all it really is, and you get your hand right on the hi-hat, you get your left hand in the snare. But the ghost notes, you get some delicate little hits in there. I always loved that groove. I thought that was such a cool pocket, you know. And Peter can do some things that people don't really give him credit for. That is a really cool groove, and the ghost notes he has going on in there.
Did Krupa teach him that?
I don't know, but it's cool, man. It's one of the first groups I played with, and it's just based on those triplets 1 2 3 1 2 3 2 2 2 2. It's a really
yeah.
cool
That's
groove.
the part of the song I'm referring to. The Peter's doing that, and
He goes in the
Ace comes in with
yeah.
his little page things he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Paul sings basically the verses again. Sorry to have taken so long. And Ace answers it with his little solo there.
I mean, Deuce, 100,000 Years, Strutter. This first album, it's funny that it's not a lot of people's favorite Kiss album, but it's got all the songs that they still play. It's got all the songs.
It's some people's favorite album, including Gene and Paul, or Gene and Ace.
Yeah,
Gene
it's
and
Ace's
Gene
favorite.
Ace.
I've heard him say that.
Yeah.
But it's got all the songs that if they don't play these songs in concert, there's going to be a riot. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it's no one's favorite. It's funny. I guess there's the Alive versions is what people. But
yeah, so 100,000 Years. I mean, that song's only grew on me throughout the years, especially. I mean, the live version I've always loved, but the studio version it's incredible. It's incredible. Yeah, great song. So Black Diamond would be next. It says written by Paul, but we know Gene had a hand in this.
And it's Gene's title too.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Paul took it and ran with it later.
Exactly. Starts off with the cleanest, most pristine sounding acoustic guitar I've ever heard. But that only gives away to the mayhem that follows, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's been in just pretty much every Kiss show. Did they ever take it out of the set at all? Or
I want to say they did.
Late 80s, maybe?
Maybe at some point.
I feel like if it's one of the ones that's been in there,
yeah. And
it might have been the one that's been in every tour.
And again, not to beat a dead horse, but I was listening to it today, and when it kind of slows down towards the end, before it really slows down, it goes into that guitar, that solo part. It's Jimmy Page, man. I mean, it's Ace emulating Page.
And Gene with this boom, 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 this little melody he worked in there on the bass.
Yeah, it works so good live too when they do that. I always remember from the Animalized Live Uncensored video that whole part. I think they're coming down on that thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Paul will definitely, in his book and stuff, give it up for Gene for helping, for really filling out this song.
Yeah, really quick, just let me say, I've really liked the way in recent years, last couple of years, Paul has really started to give Gene a lot of credit. And say he's my brother and all this stuff. That shows a lot of class, and it's true. Good on you, Paul. I mean, Gene has always said throughout the 80s, all the 90s, whatever, like, I couldn't do this without Paul Stanley. And Paul is starting to say that as well. So that's good, because I love their interplay. Like, when you see them, you ever see like recent concert footage where Paul's like saying, doing this to Gene on stage? Like, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, they know it's coming to an end, so they're
getting sentimental.
They're going to make the most of it.
They're getting sentimental.
Yeah.
I want to see their last show when they do. Let me know. I want to see them hug on stage. I
want to see them kiss with tongues.
Yeah, I do want to see that. Seriously,
you
show some emotion.
But that's what you were thinking. You didn't want to.
Yeah,
it's cool.
I don't want to see
it's
Paul go stage right and Gene go stage left, and it's over. They gotta. It's Gene and Paul. Come on.
Yeah.
This
is that, the last Slayer show, Tom Araya is just standing out there at the front of the stage, just looking at the crowd.
Yeah.
You seen that? He's just looking at the crowd for like 10 minutes. Like, this is it.
Yeah. And it really has been for them, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're not one of those bands that are going to do some other reunion tour in a couple of years.
Well, when one of their main writers dies, it's kind of hard to...
Did we just branch off into a Slayer segment?
It's pretty much a Slayer episode now. From the first album, Frankie Valli, now it's Slayer. Absolutely. Come on.
So what do you think of Diabolus in Musica?
Well,
Diablos in Musica.
For me, I'm Rain and Blood and South of Heaven.
I know.
Those are my favorites. In fact, South of Heaven I like even better than Rain and Blood.
Really?
There's going to be some arguments.
Wow.
I like the tempo shifts and stuff.
Okay.
I think it's way more Sabbathy as far as their tempo shifts. It's a little slower than Rain and Blood, but anyway, back to Kiss.
Rain and Blood, though, is like... It's like 27 minutes of just relentlessness.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Seasons in the Abyss is pretty good, too. No, it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Those three, That's really classic Slayer. The
Okay.
stuff before it's good, a little primal. And the stuff after it, they toss Dave and Bardo and stuff.
You know, I will say this. Last thing we'll say about Slayer. 2 things. Something I'll say about it and a fun fact.
Uh-huh.
God Hates Us All is incredible.
Yeah.
Also,
it's a good one. It's a
and
good
here's
one.
the fun fact. Release date of God Hates Us All.
Yeah. Is it 9/11?
9/11/2001. That's it, folks. See you later.
Yeah, later. There's our kiss.
Okay, so we were talking about Black Diamond. And I love the way. I mean, classic song. You all know it. We're not going to sit here and beat a dead horse. I love the way it ends with that. The whole.
It slows down.
Yeah.
I love it. I always thought it was really cool. Obviously, it's very novelty. It's just a thing they decided to do in the studio, slow the tape machine down, whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. Some people like really have to hate it. It's a little long. I guess they're just wanting to hate, but it's pretty cool. I mean, what are you gonna say? It's just the way it is. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like the fade out, fade in novelty thing they did on I Love It Loud.
Yeah.
It's cool.
And in concert, Paul used it. That's when he broke his guitar, right? At least
Yeah.
not live.
I mean, it's memorable. So that's what
Yeah.
they're trying to do. They're trying to do something different.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It's a great ending to what I can. I was thinking about this. So, Kiss's debut. How come this doesn't get mentioned in the best debuts of all time? Rock albums.
Yeah.
You hear about Van Halen, you hear about the Doors. Make great albums. Don't get me wrong, but come on, it's Kiss's debut album and Deuce, Strutter, Firehouse.
Yeah.
Let me know. Cold Gin, Nothing to Lose.
It's
Come on,
because
100,000 years.
It's because it's fully realized in retrospect. You know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah, it didn't sell a ton when it came out, maybe 75,000 copies.
Yeah.
It eventually went gold, like when Kiss, during Kissteria. But it's incredible.
And the album cover, which we just forgot to talk about, or haven't got there yet.
Yeah.
Strange Days, The Doors and
Yeah.
Strange Days.
Yeah.
Same photographer.
Yeah, and apparently when this photographer met Kiss at the studio to do this, he had a trunk full of like clown outfits and straw hats and red noses and
Yeah.
balloons. And Paul, it's in Paul's book. Paul
Yeah.
said, "What's this?" He goes, "Well, you're clowns, right?" And Paul goes, "No, we're serious about this." So they had a makeup artist on hand, and Gene, Paul, and Ace decided to do their own makeup. Thank God. But Peter, what's with this tribal lion warrior thing, huh? Yeah, that's
Kind of
he was going to do that every night on tour.
Kind of a cat.
Yeah.
Also, I have to say that the other three's makeup just looks better. It looks like it's done better. The lines on Peter's thing, it's imperfect. I think Gene and Ace and Paul kind of got their thing down at this point.
Yeah, and
I
I
don't
like the
know.
way Ace is looking up to the sky. The ultimate space.
He's got the
spaceman
silver
move.
He's got the silver hair, which he didn't do very
Yeah,
much.
that didn't last long. No.
Yeah. Gene's got a silver bandana on, which is something you don't see him doing very often.
Is that a bandana or an ascot?
What?
Is that an ascot or a bandana?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, even though Peter's makeup is a little weird, still cool. And
It's cool,
it makes
but
the first album cover what
come
it is.
on, you got to simplify that.
It just makes the first album cover look so weird, considering we've all gotten used to the normal Peter Criss makeup. It just makes it so strange,
Yeah, very influenced by Meet the Beatles.
Yep.
Yeah.
Black and white, four faces, super group. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can see some of the stuff. We didn't really talk about the coming together of the costumes too, but they were going to S&M shops, wearing dog collars and stuff,
Yeah,
stores and whatever, to get this studded black
Looks
leather
like
look together.
Paul has his dog collar on.
They were having stuff made for them.
Yeah.
They were having stuff made for him. About this time, you see Gene with the bat on his crotch on those leather pants.
I wonder what they showed up actually wearing, because they didn't know they were going to do it like this. They showed up with clothes they thought they were going to wear.
Have we seen pictures of them just standing around for the shoot out? Have I?
I don't think I
know.
have.
I don't know if I have either.
But anyway, yeah, Kiss's debut album. So it came out in February '74. The exact date is kind of disputed. Some people say the 8th, some people say the 18th. I'm going to go with the 8th. A couple weeks later, they were on ABC's In Concert.
Yeah, just think about that. Just like you record your album, you finish it up in November, and you're hoping for something good, and you're on
It's like, Mom and Dad, we're going to be on national
you're
TV.
on national television. Just
Yeah. Yeah, so they were
Amazing.
on that. They were on the Mike Douglas show a couple months later. Gene was interviewed, very much in character.
So cool.
Yeah.
That's just so cool.
Yeah, they did Firehouse on there. So they were getting their name out there for sure. So
Yeah,
they're
you know, a lot of people, and they'll say, yeah, the first albums weren't selling, but they were selling okay, and they were out there, and you know, bands didn't really want them to open up for them because they were blowing them off the stage with this big production, you know. So big stuff was happening. They knew it. Like, I mean, these first few albums, I think they were still selling. I mean, they're on national television, you know, twice in the first during the first tour.
definitely. They opened up for Savoy Brown and Manfred Mann.
I heard that didn't go over. The Savoy Brown gigs didn't go that good.
Nah, not at all.
I'm a big Savoy Brown
Me
fan.
too.
I
Me too.
got 2 or 3 of the Savoy Brown albums from my dad. Now I have about a complete collection, like 2 copies of every album, a mint copy, a couple copies that were my dad's original copies. Love Savoy Brown, but I guess Kiss and Savoy Brown didn't hit it off that well.
Street corner talking.
Rush and Kiss hit it off pretty well later on their tours.
Yeah, that's kind of a legendary kind of friendship, Rush and Kiss.
Yeah, the bag.
So yeah, if you can hear it in the background, Long Beach 74.
100,000 years.
This is 100,000 Years. This is my favorite Kiss bootleg of all time. I'm thinking about how many Kiss shows you can listen to. Kiss, they were really starting to hit their stride that first tour. They were selling albums. The little amount that they were selling it was based on their live show. It wasn't based on Kiss in Time making number 87 on the charts. So yeah, they were out there, and so we've decided we're just going to go straight into Hotter Than Hell for our next episode, and then of course Dress to Kill. We're going to keep the ball rolling on this because, you know, this is a very special time, you know.
Because we've skipped around, and because
Yeah.
like I really wanted to talk about Creatures because it's so amazing. Really wanted to talk about Alive too, but every time we've done an episode, me personally at least, I'm really wanting to talk about the next album. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we're trying to throw some variety out there. But you know, screw that variety. It's just a flow. Got to
Yeah.
go with the flow. Might as well do these 3 good albums in a row.
Yeah, and like we said, you know, this is January 2023. It's 50 years since the beginning of Kiss. Why not go back to the beginning? So
Yeah.
so this has been our episode on Kiss's debut album and everything leading up to it. Well, not everything. We'll get into Wicked Lester and all that at some point. Okay, so thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you're still watching this way over an hour later. Right on. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Chance, and everybody out there. And
Thank you for the cards, Jeff. I'm gonna have him watch this episode.
absolutely. All right. See you next time when we why don't we turn up the temperature and get a little hotter than hell.
Good one.
Okay.